collapses and later dies. His killer would say he didn't remember a thing. But this story doesn't start on that sidewalk. It starts months earlier with 11-year-old David Glatzel, a family in fear, and the demonologist Ed and Lorraine Warren, who step into a home and say it is under siege. This is the demonic possession defense of Arne Johnson, the case remembered as The Devil Made Me Do It. Hey, y'all, I'm Chris Calvert.
And I'm her husband, Rob Potterworth. Welcome to Hitched to Homicide.
For better or worse.
Till death do us part.
Everybody.
Yes, welcome. And for our friends over there in West Africa, in the country of Mali.
Mali.
Yes. Ibisi Mila.
That's very good. Well, wherever you're listening, be sure to subscribe to Hitched to Homicide, then like, rate, and review the podcast so other people who are just like you and love true crime can find us. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below.
Yep.
If you want true crime with us all the time, please join our closed Facebook group, The In-Laws and The Outlaws. There are way more outlaws in there. I'm just telling you now.
Yes, there are.
Go to Facebook and type in H2H In-Laws and Outlaws, answer a couple questions, and you're in. Go join. I did accidentally hit accept all a couple of days ago. So if you were invited in by a friend and you didn't answer the questions and suddenly you're in the In-Laws and Outlaws, I apologize.
There you go.
There's only a couple of you, but I fumble fingers.
Yeah.
But go join.
Yeah. Hey, before we go any further, I know we've had people say, we want to see Scotty. So I'm going to hold him up in the camera right here. There he is. There's Scotty. What do you think, big guy? Now everybody's got a good view of him.
He was barking his head off before I got started this morning. Well, go join. Go join the In-Laws and Outlaws, or stay, even if you weren't supposed to be there.
Okay.
I post photos and other information in there. It's a great group of folks. You can find us on Instagram at Hitched to Homicide or on X at H2H_podcast. We also have a Buy Me a Coffee link if you want to send Rob some coffee. It's actually really chilly here today in Kentucky as we are recording this, and coffee is a good thing today.
I'm on my second cup already.
You can find that link in our show notes. You can also send us a text. The link to that is at the top of the show notes where it says, send Chris and Rob a text.
Yes.
It's October and spooky season, and I've always wanted to do this case because I've seen all of these movies except for the latest one, the Conjuring films. Okay. The Conjuring was released on July 19th, 2013, and was directed by iconic horror director James Wan. And he's also the man behind the movies Insidious and Saw.
Okay.
The film, The Conjuring, was a big hit with critics at the box office and is still considered to be one of the best horror films of the 21st century.
Yeah, I don't do horror films.
Rob does not do horror films, and I did not tell him we were doing this case on purpose.
There you go.
But success means more movies, right? Yeah. So we got the Annabelle movies and the Nun films, and these films all follow the lives of the late Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were two self-proclaimed demonologists and paranormal investigators who claim to have helped many people get rid of the supernatural entities that were plaguing them. Ed and Lorraine were married in 1945 and went on to found the New England Society for Psychic Research, or NESPR, in 1952, which would go on to become the oldest ghost hunting group in New England.
Who are you going to call?
Ghostbusters, or Ed and Lorraine back then.
Yeah, exactly.
These two claim to have investigated over 10,000 cases of paranormal phenomena and authored many books on the subject, as well as held many interviews, talks, and lectures regarding their studies and their cases, like the possession of a Raggedy Ann doll named Annabelle, who comedian Matt Rife recently purchased.
Did he really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. I love him. He's great.
I'm like, dude. And the guy who was like taking Annabelle around the country, he had the doll in Louisville, Kentucky, and he died there.
Really?
I'm like, don't take that doll. Don't take that doll.
See, I'm more of a Caddyshack kind of guy.
Yes, you are. But what about the Conjuring house? The infamous Rhode Island farmhouse that inspired the 2013 horror film is heading to foreclosure auction on October 31st, 2025.
This house is clean.
So following financial and legal troubles under its most recent owner, Jacqueline Nunez, paranormal celebrity Jason Hawes has launched a public campaign to purchase the home and convert it into a historic site open for tours with crowdfunding efforts underway. But Ed and Lorraine wrote lots of books, and they investigated lots of people. The Perrin family haunting, the Amityville horror, and the Enville poltergeist, all cases which have been adapted into film. Okay. Now, Elaine and Ed had a museum, the Warrens Occult Museum, which closed to the public in 2019 and had many, many haunted and cursed objects that were supposedly really bad, including that Annabelle doll. But the validity of all the cases the Warrens investigated are subject to suspicion. That's why I'm starting out with all of these, okay?
All right.
Ed and Lorraine are these heroic characters in these movies, and there are plenty of people who've said they used all of these cases, including the Amityville horror, which we've covered before. They used all these cases just to make money and to write and sell books. Now, regardless of how real the incidents were, and regardless of whether Ed and Lorraine were real or not, Lorraine legitimately claimed to be a clairvoyant. In October of 2023, Netflix released a documentary on the case we are doing right now called The Devil on Trial. And I can't wait to tell you all about it and my take on it.
All right.
Before we get started, let me thank some sources. Crime Weekly, The Casual Criminalist, Wikipedia, Vermont Law Review, All That's Interesting, Time Magazine, Reddit, The New York Times, Netflix, The Devil on Trial, NESPR, Paranormal Research in New England, Global News, Oxygen Channel, Radio Times, Mashable, Haunt Jaunts, I liked that name, Haunt Jaunts, and People Magazine, just to name a few. You will find all of the sources I have used in the show notes.
All right. Well, you ready?
I am.
Well, let's do it.
Rob, it's 1980 in New England, the town of Brookfield, Connecticut, on Oak Grove Road. Carl and Judy Glatzel are a normal American family. They were the loving parents of 4 children. I saw where Carl was compared to Grizzly Adams.
Oh, really?
And if you don't know who that is, you're just too young.
Yeah, exactly. And you've never eaten bark.
True.
Yeah.
Old Grizz.
Yep.
Judy and Carl's kids were Debbie, who is 26, Carl Jr., 15, Alan, 13, and their youngest, David, is 11. This is a deeply religious Catholic family, and their 4 children all appeared to be normal. Debbie, who's 26, is actually engaged to a young man named Arne Johnson, who is 19 years old.
Wasn't he in Laughing? Oh, no, that was Artie Johnson.
Artie. Right. A little backstory on Debbie and Arnie. I almost called him Artie because of you. Thanks a lot.
I'm just here to mess you up.
In 1976, Debbie moves out of her parents' home and into the home of single mother Mary Johnson. Mary had 3 kids of her own and had adopted her niece in 1971. And in that same year, 1971, Mary is diagnosed with colon cancer. And since she can't really pay her bills and her husband had left the family, Mary decided to take in a boarder, somebody who would rent out one room.
Sure.
And in 1976, she rents out a room to a young dog groomer named Debbie Glatzel. And Debbie becomes really close with the family. She was good to them. She was really kind, which is why the oldest of the Johnson kids, Arne, falls deeply in love with Debbie. But Debbie and Arne actually met in 1974 when she was 19 and he was 12.
Hello.
Apparently, Debbie had knocked over a magazine display in the supermarket, and Arne, who was there with his mom, walked over and helped her get everything picked up.
No.
And then Debbie made friends with Mary and then later moved in with the family.
Yeah.
So Debbie lives with Mary's family for 4 years, and Debbie and Arne get closer and closer, and Arnie's a good kid. He was big into Little League. That sounds like an oxymoron. He's big into Little League.
It's better than being little into big league.
He was a paper boy, and he used money from being a paper boy to buy his mother a used car so she wouldn't have to walk to her job as a cleaning lady at the Holiday Inn.
What a great kid.
He dropped out of school in the 10th grade so he could take a full-time job to support the family.
Wow.
But through all these hardships, Mary always had her kids at church on Sunday. They were Baptists, and Arne even sang in the church choir. Now, by the time 1980 rolls around, he's 18. He's never been in a fight. He's never been in trouble with the police. He didn't get into arguments. He's just a good kid who's in love with Debbie. Now, according to Lorraine and Ed Warren, Judy and Debbie and her mom, they dabbled in some witchcraft when they met some people in upstate New York. Apparently, they were there snowmobiling. And these people were into satanic activities, and whatever Judy and Debbie did in upstate New York, they seem to have dragged it back to Brookfield, Connecticut.
Uh-oh.
I read in another source that Debbie had a Ouija board.
Oh,
By the way, when I walk through a cemetery, I don't care if I'm there to visit somebody I love or whatever. When I get to the edge, I say, don't anybody follow me home.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to stay right here. Don't follow me home.
Well, what's funny is that, I was raised in a predominantly, Christian background family.
As we both were.
Yep. But we had a Ouija board when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, I've never seen a Ouija board in person, never touched one, never will.
Well, this was in the 70s, so I don't think the stigma around the Ouija board was really prevalent at that time.
That's true, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't doing the exact same thing.
I know, exactly, yeah.
I'm a little bit more of an empath than Rob, so I stay away from anything that seems like maybe there's something wrong with it.
Yeah.
Even in New Orleans, I can't go in like the voodoo stores. I can't go in there because I can't breathe when I'm in there. So make of that what you will.
Yeah.
So it's the summer of 1980, and the youngest of the Glatzel children, David, who is 11, who himself has said he was a quiet kid when he was little. On the 2nd of July, 1980, when David's older sister, Debbie, and her fiancé, Arne, they begin house hunting, and they find a place to rent in Newtown, Connecticut. It was going to be a house for all of them, Arnie's mom, his sisters, and his little cousin, and his fiancée, Debbie. And Arne and Debbie were planning on getting married in the spring of 1981, and they're just going to go ahead and move in together. And when they find this new place to live, David and the rest of the family, they're all at this new place helping to clean up as they're moving in. As you do, everybody kind of shows up to help move boxes and stuff and sweep up. And little David, went upstairs to sweep one of the bedrooms. And according to Lorraine Warren, this is where the beast made itself known to little David. David has said that the place had an odd feeling, that it was a weird house. So he goes upstairs to sweep out one of the rooms when, according to him, even to this very day, he claims he was accosted by something.
Oh, wow.
Quote, I was in the bedroom on my own, but I could feel something, and then I was pushed backwards onto the waterbed. I saw this image. It looked like the devil from a Halloween costume. His eyes were black, solid black, just like a chunk of coal, and it scared me, end quote.
Wow.
David ran out of the house and begged his mom and dad to take him home. And later that day, his brothers, Carl Jr. and Alan, were sent into that bedroom to pick up boxes. And when they tried to leave the room, the door suddenly slammed shut and they couldn't get out.
Man.
So they're screaming and banging on the door, and then just suddenly it opens. Then while sitting around the dinner table that night, David's parents asked him what happened, and David was very closed off. Now, he was quiet anyway, but he was very closed off and he was irritated. And later that night, he confided in his brother, Alan, who he shared a room with, telling him about what he saw. And he tells his brother this entity told him that he wanted his soul and that he was coming for him. And Alan tells him, you need to tell Arne and Debbie before they move into this house.
Yeah.
And so David does. And Debbie looks at her little brother and is like, you are ridiculous.
You're nuts.
But the next morning, July 3rd, 1980, Debbie is thinking maybe David's on to something about this house that they're about to move into. But they had sunk all their money into their first and last month's rent. There was no going back.
Right. They
did talk to the woman who lived on the rental property before them, thinking, we'll just find out from her and she's going to reassure us. Her name was Michelle. She had some strange things happen to her while she was living in this same house. So the family just kind of blows it off, and Arne even jokingly asked David if he had gotten into the medicine cabinet and taken some pills that he shouldn't have.
Wow.
That's called foreshadowing. Make it a really menacing foreshadowing.
Okay, let me do octaves here. Ready?
Much better. It's Halloween season.
All right.
But David was adamant that what he had seen was real. And again, according to Lorraine, David saw the same entity that very night in his own home, not in Debbie and Arnie's home. Now, remember, he's 11, and he says that the guy had feet like a deer, so cloven hooves.
Jeez.
He also says that this entity muttered in Latin and threatened to steal his soul. Now, I don't know how an 11-year-old knows what Latin sounds like.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say that now. This is when Arne and Debbie decide, we're out. We're going to move out of this townhouse. They pack up their boxes and move out that day, even though they never really sort of unpacked and moved in.
Yeah.
But Arnie's mother isn't buying it, and she's staying with her 2 daughters and her niece. And Arne and Debbie move into Debbie's parents' home. So Debbie's parents have 4 kids, and now they've got a fiance living there too. So these sightings for David go on for months. And he's having visions at first of this old man in plaid who would push and scare him, but then it began to change into something more demonic. And the family did hear strange noises coming from the attic, but only David saw this old man or this entity. And David begins having night terrors, and he started to behave strangely. He wasn't himself. And on top of that, David keeps showing up with these unexplained scratches and bruises. The family said there were knocks on the door. They would open the door and no one was there. And David is constantly in a state of fear from seeing, quote, the man. And being the devout Catholic family they were, on July 9th, this is like a week and a half later, Judy called their priest to come and bless their house. And in walks Father Nicholas Greco from St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Brookfield. Okay. He was invited at the family's request after these disturbing events started happening to David, and they felt like it was escalating. And the priest performed a house blessing and conducted prayers in an attempt to rid the property of any evil influences. I will tell you now, our resident psychic, Catherine Kaufman, will say, get your house blessed.
Yeah.
Get your house blessed.
Yep.
This priest was ultimately unsuccessful because according to the Glatzels and the Warrens, the spiritual disturbances in the house and David's violent fits continued or even worsened after this blessing. The family even claimed that one night after David woke up screaming bloody murder, the entire house began to shake as if it had been struck by an earthquake.
Wow.
After that, Carl and Judy, the parents, happened to speak with their neighbor who claimed to know all about the supernatural and suggested that they get in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were famous at the time for their work on the Amityville house. Now, I also read that the priest who blessed the house recommended that they get in touch with the Warrens. So whichever one it was, I don't know. There were conflicting sources.
Okay.
But the Warrens were famous for this Amityville case. And again, we've done this case for anybody who's unaware of this case. At 3 a.m. on November 13th, 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot his parents and 4 younger siblings with a .35 caliber rifle while they slept.
Yeah.
Then after this happens and he is put in jail, another family moves in, the Lutz family. They move in December of 1975, a year after the murders take place, but they only stayed there for 28 days before they left the house, and the family later claimed that the house was haunted by the spirits of the murdered DeFeos and another evil entity, one that perhaps compelled Robert DeFeo Jr. to murder his family. I will say, people live in this very house today. And after they left, after the Lutzes left, nobody else had paranormal activity. So take that with a grain of salt.
Okay.
Now, a little more history on the Warrens. Ed Warren was born on September 7th, 1926 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and he claims to have grown up in a house that was haunted. He served in the U.S. Navy during World War II before pursuing a career as a paranormal investigator. And I read that and I was like, Rob's dad was in the Navy in World War II. I wonder if they were somewhere together.
Could have been.
Lorraine Warren was 16 years old when she met Ed, and she'd also been born in Bridgeport on January 31st, 1927. Lorraine claimed to have been able to see and communicate with spirits from the time that she was a young girl, and she would become instrumental in paranormal investigations because, allegedly, she was able to use her psychic abilities to gather information about hauntings and possessions. Lorraine was also a lifelong devout Catholic, and she felt that her faith in God was essential to their work, especially when dealing with demonic entities. Now, Ed and Lorraine led this paranormal group, the New England Society for Psychic Research, which they founded in 1952. And as I already said, it's recognized as the oldest ghost hunting organization in New England, and it is still in operation today. The Warrens and a group of other paranormal investigators spent some time investigating this Amityville house in 1976, and that brought them worldwide attention because they were in interviews and on talk shows across the nation. It was like, I remember my mom buying this book to read it.
Oh, really?
It was like it was really national attention.
Okay.
But it's after all of this that David's older sister and his mom and dad reached out to the Warrens.
Okay.
Now, remember I said one source said it was a neighbor and another said that a priest actually contacted the Warrens. Well, according to Ed and Lorraine, they were contacted by a Father Dennis Vergelak, who was the pastor at St. Joseph's Church in Brookfield.
Okay.
Father Dennis, I'm sorry if I messed that up. And they actually call him Father Dennis. And he tells Ed and Lorraine about David and that he and another priest had tried to help, but they believed it was a case of possession. And Father Dennis tells the Warrens that he was leery of becoming involved in this case because he had been assigned by the bishop to exorcise another home. Is that what it's called when you exorcise? You exorcise the demons, right? Yeah.
That's exactly it.
But Father Dennis is like, I want you to know you have my prayers, but I need to pass this off to somebody else.
I'm tapping out.
At that time, he was going to Ireland with his mother, which I thought was so sweet. Yeah. And he was concerned, according to Ed and Lorraine, that whatever this entity was would want to get back at him maybe through his mom. He was trying to protect his mother.
Sure.
Now, he spoke of David and David's problems. He said that David had a slight learning disability, which was true. But he tells him there was very bizarre behavior occurring to this young 11-year-old boy.
Okay.
Regardless, Ed and Lorraine come to see David. On July 14th, the Warrens show up at the Glatzel home. They also brought with them a doctor, Dr. Jim Giangrasso, to see if David was suffering from some form of mental illness instead of it being paranormally related.
Okay.
Now, after the doctor gives David some tests, David was given a clean bill of health, both physically and psychologically. But David's parents are really concerned. David's mom, Judy, wanted things with her 11-year-old son to stop and for everything just to go back to normal, which sounds like what a mom would say. I just need this to quit. I just need this to go away.
Right.
And Ed and Lorraine did all they could to make Judy and the rest of the family feel at ease. But the Warrens believe that David is in the very beginning stages of a demonic possession. And according to Lorraine, the night that they met the Glatzels, it was really hot outside. It's summer. And she thought it was just a weird night. Quote, when we arrived there, first Ed tripped going up the steps into the house, and Dr. Jim made kind of a laughing comment. And then he tripped and fell too. And when we got in the house, we were sitting there at the table talking. Now, you would watch David, and he would be doodling, drawing, or something like that, and he'd be concentrating on what he was doing, and then he would look up, and it was no longer a little 11-year-old boy,
Ouch.
End quote.
Wow.
Now, the Warrens warned them that David would soon likely be acting differently than he normally would. So Lorraine's looking at Judy and saying, you think this is bad? It's going to get really bad.
Yeah.
She tells them he's going to become vulgar. He's going to become unpredictable. They told them that they needed to document everything that happened to them and gather as much evidence as possible to take to the archbishop in order to get an exorcism approved.
Okay.
And so the family bought a video recorder and a camera to document everything that happened. Mm-hmm. And soon enough, what Ed predicted came to be.
Wow.
Soon, David started experiencing blackouts during which he would scream and laugh and growl and curse. According to Lorraine, quote, I've seen nights when it would take 4 and 5 men to hold him down. He would be ranting and raving and yelling. There were times when he would attack his mother, end quote. He would act like someone was choking the life out of him. He called his mother a douchebag and a
Jeez.
He threatened to kill them all with a knife, and these fits allegedly would last from minutes to hours, and the family would try to restrain him. And they used everything they could, crucifixes, prayers, rosaries, holy water. Nothing worked. According to David, quote, I remember being choked, but I don't remember anything else when I blacked out, or even if I blacked out, or what happened. Nobody could ever answer that, end quote.
Okay, and forgive me, how old was he at this time now?
He's 11.
All right.
And he's an adult when he starts giving interviews like to Netflix.
Okay.
And that he's recalling that back again, that he didn't remember it.
At 11, it still took 4 or 5 people to hold him down.
At 11, it took 4 or 5, according to Lorraine.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
And I keep saying this, according to, you'll know why when we get to the end of the podcast.
All right.
According to the Warrens, here we go again, it was always around 11 p.m. at night when David would change. Quote, all of a sudden you'd look at him, he was normal. The next second, it wasn't David anymore. And this would go on up until the sun came up, end quote. David would roll around, go into fits, have unexplainable strength. Lorraine claimed that she witnessed him levitating and spewing obscenities and witnessed a black mist materialize next to David, an indication of a malevolent presence.
Wow.
Debbie and her mother told the Warrens they had seen David being beaten and choked by invisible hands, and that the red marks had appeared on him afterward. And David had started to growl, speak in otherworldly voices, and recite passages from the Bible or Paradise Lost, which, if you don't know what that is, it's about the biblical story of the fall of man, the temptation of Adam and Eve by the fallen angel Satan, and their expulsion from the Garden of Eden.
And I'm sure he hadn't read this book.
Well, he's 11, and he has a learning disability.
Yeah, wow.
The Glatzels recounted how each night a family member would remain awake with David as he suffered through spasms and convulsions. And the Warrens say he was possessed by devils. Lorraine has said in an interview that she called on the beast to come where she was so she could bind the spirit of that devil.
Oh, wow.
But, quote, that was one of the most frightening evenings of my life. There was not one devil. There were 43.
Jeez.
It came to me as a kaleidoscope, as if you were watching one horrible face after another. I knew I had no power against this, end quote. Now, the Warrens mention a priest that I couldn't find in any other source, Father Virgil. They say that after he was at the house one night, he woke up the next day and his pillow was soaked in blood, something that Lorraine referred to as an apport. And in paranormal terminology, that's hard to say, it's the alleged phenomenon where an object is transported or materializes seemingly out of nowhere, often during a seance or in the presence of a medium. In the context of teleportation, an apport refers specifically to the supposed transfer, arrival, or sudden appearance of a physical object that passes through material barriers by supernatural means. Can you tell I looked that up?
Not at all. I would have said the same thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lorraine says it's meant to frighten people. She believed that they wanted them to stop. She believed these demons wanted to stop the investigation.
Right.
But Lorraine has always said that they had angelic protection. I, too, feel like I have guardian angels watching over me.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
According to Lorraine, when you become frightened, you throw off psychic energy. For devils, demons, and evil spirits, they use this as fuel to manifest more phenomena. They need energy, and that's the energy they use. It's like Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
They bottle up the screams of the little kids and use it for energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, with all this going on, you might think that Arne Johnson, Debbie's fiance, would be like, see ya, I'm out of here, because he's living with them.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, not at all. That's not the kind of guy he is. He's the paper boy who buys his mom a used car so she doesn't have to walk to her job at the Holiday Inn.
Right.
He and Debbie and her little brother David, he was close to David. He would take him fishing. They would all go fishing together. He was really an essential part of their family. He was like one of them already, even though he hadn't married in yet.
Okay.
Arne was a landscaper for Wright Tree Service, and he's going to become a tree surgeon. And again, Arnie's just an all-American kid. He's 18 in 1980. And while he's living with the Glatzel family, he would always help out with David at night when it would escalate and get bad. And according to Elaine and Ed Warren, he would stay awake all night with David and then go to work the next morning without any sleep. Finally, enough evidence was brought before the church after all the spewing of the bad words and the throwing of punches.
The convulsions and the...
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was all brought to the church, and on the 20th of September, 1980, the Glatzel family and Arne arrived at their local church to meet with the Warrens and the priests, and it was decided that he showed enough evidence of a demonic possession that a cardinal from the Catholic Church came to meet with the family, and an exorcism was ordered.
Okay.
Now, sources show that between 3 and 6 priests visited with David over all of these different exorcisms. The Warrens claimed that 3 of them were from the Vatican. I don't know how many of these priests tried to perform the exorcism. I believe they worked together, like it was more than one priest there at a time.
Right.
But when the first exorcism happens, it's performed by Father Dennis, who I guess even though he didn't want to get involved, he's now involved.
Sure.
And when the exorcism happens, David has to be held down to the floor for it to be finished. He reportedly growled and hissed. He twisted and thrashed about. He tried to attack the priest in charge, and David called him all sorts of names before being held down. And there were multiple exorcisms performed between September and October of 1980. But during this first one at the church, it was in the basement that was adjacent to the school. And he was so loud. There was so much noise and violence that it could be heard in the elementary school.
Wow.
According to Lorraine and Ed, the doors in the back of the church were opening and shutting, and the pews, which were bolted down, were moving. Hymnals that were in the seats next to the Warrens flew away, and David broke away from everybody holding him and attacked the priest.
Wow.
But at the last of the exorcisms, when a young priest has come in to take Father Dennis's place on October 14th, 1980, during the exorcism, David began to turn blue. His tongue swelled. He couldn't breathe. And that's when Arne, who's been by Debbie's side and right there with the family helping with David, Arne steps in and says, quote, "I yelled at this thing at the top of my lungs. I said, leave this kid alone. Take me on. I'm here. Take me on." End quote. According to Arne, he felt a coldness, ice cold, come over him.
Wow.
And Lorraine said, "Oh my God, what did you just do?" And after that, everything seemed to sort of fade away. David's behavior returned to normal. There were no more strange occurrences in the house. And it all seemed that, like, one way or another, this exorcism had worked. David has said, quote, "I remember I was happy. I spent a lot of time just playing outside, trying to be a good kid, be the sort of good boy of the family," end quote. Soon after the exorcism, where Arne tells the entity to take him on, Ed and Lorraine went to the police. Glenn Cooper was a detective at the time, and he recounted his encounter with the Warrens for the Devil on Trial series in great detail. Quote, "I was aware that there were strange things, demonic things, allegedly happening in the Glatzel house. Some of the police officers had gotten noise complaints there or something. I was a detective on duty, and Ed and Lorraine Warren came to the old police department on Grays Bridge Road. Ed Warren introduced himself as a demonologist, and Lorraine introduced herself as a psychic. Lorraine was upset. She went on to tell me that during one of the actual exorcisms, Arne Johnson challenged the devil to leave David and take him on, and Lorraine was very upset about that. She says, he should not have done that. You cannot do that. He does not know what he's up against. And she said, I see serious injury or death with a knife.
Oh, wow.
She said that she wanted to make it clear, quote, I see this happening as a psychic. She was very matter of fact. She didn't look bizarre. She didn't act bizarre. I thought she was relating what she really believed. And to her, it was real, end quote. Now, according to Discovery Channel's A Haunting Where Demons Dwell, a few days after Arne eggs on this demon during the exorcism, he was attacked by the demon who allegedly took control of his car and forced it into a tree. Thankfully, Arne wasn't hurt. But after this car wreck, Arne is at their rental property to examine an old well, and here he encounters this demon again. And after encountering the demon at the well and making eye contact with it, he became possessed. This is the encounter with the demon where he's really lucid and aware of what's happening around him. And according to Lorraine Warren, when you challenge the demonic like Arne did, it doesn't act at that particular given moment. It waits until you are the most vulnerable, and then it strikes. Hold that thought. For several months, things seemed pretty quiet in the Glatzel home. David wasn't having any more episodes. Arnie's mother, Mary Johnson, did move the three girls out of that one rented townhouse, the one where David first met the demon.
Right.
After the kids kept getting hurt. They kept having accident after accident. At the end of November, Arne and Debbie leave the Glatzel home when Debbie gets a new job grooming dogs at the Brookfield Kennels on Route 7. So Arne has his job at the Wright Tree Service, and Debbie's taken this new job at the local kennels. And the manager of this kennel would also be Arne and Debbie's landlord. His name is Alan J. Bono. Now, Debbie and Arne are happy. They're planning their wedding for spring. She's got this new job. Things are looking great. And although I couldn't find Alan Bono's birth date, I will tell you that he grew up in New York City and attended Iona College in New Rochelle, New York. After college, he became a world traveler, visiting Europe and the Far East before ending up in Australia, where he worked as a manager of several plantations. He'd been living in Australia for the past 17 months when his sister Virginia, who lived in Florida, asked him to go to Connecticut and manage the Brookfield kennels.
Okay.
So was that enough different places for you?
He was a nomad.
This business was owned by his sister, by Alan's sister.
Okay.
Alan Bono didn't know anything about running a kennel. He didn't even like animals. So he was quick to offer Debbie the job, which came along with a free apartment in a block of 4 units that he also managed right next to the kennel. Seems idyllic, right?
Yeah.
Things are looking up for this young couple who now had these steady incomes and a place of their own. And they really liked Alan, who had his issues, but he was friendly and he was a talker with them.
Right.
Debbie said, quote, Alan wasn't married and ate in restaurants almost all the time. He liked to take people out and buy them lunch just to have company, end quote. And when he meets Debbie and Arne, he's only been living in Connecticut for about 4 or 5 months. And apparently Alan liked to talk about himself, but he's also an alcoholic. And not only did he like to talk about himself and all his travels and the things that he had done, he, according to Debbie, talked about death every single day.
Really?
Yes. But remember, he's an alcoholic.
Sure.
Alan became friends with both Arne and Debbie, but after they move into their new place, Arne starts to exhibit odd behavior. Behavior that Debbie believed was all too similar to what her little brother David went through. According to Debbie, Arne would fall into a trance. He would growl and hallucinate, but later have no memory of it. But even though this is happening, these two are really happy. I mean, they're still looking forward to getting married.
Yeah, but I'm thinking, if all of a sudden I started growling and blacking out, I don't think you would go, yeah, but we're really happy. I don't know. Call me crazy.
You're going to see why I say that in a little while, okay?
All right.
On the night of February 15th, Arne and Debbie pick up his 2 sisters and his cousin, a little 9-year-old girl named Mary. These kids didn't have school the next day, so they were having a sleepover at Debbie and Arnie's place. The next morning, February 16th, 1981, Arne isn't feeling well, so he calls in sick to work where he's now this tree surgeon. He had slept while Debbie took the girls to the kennel so they could play with the dogs while she worked. And at some point, Alan Bono joins them. It was about 11 a.m., and he is already drunk, according to Debbie. But when Debbie is finished grooming a dog just before lunchtime, Alan invited all of them out to lunch at the Mug and Munch. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I believe Lorraine called it a pizza palace, but...
I like Mug and Munch better.
Yeah, me too. They all had hamburgers and Cokes, but Alan drank wine like it was, quote, water, end quote. Alan invited Arne and Debbie to have a drink with him. But they're like, it's 11 o'clock now. Yeah. We're probably good. It's just lunch. Yeah. We're good.
I know it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but I think I'll pass.
But when he insisted, they each had a glass of wine. They sipped on a glass of wine. Now, after lunch, they went to a pet supply place to buy things for the kennel and then went back to this kennel place where they both worked. Well, I don't know how much Alan was working, but Debbie was working there.
Right.
And while Debbie got back to work, Arne fixed Alan's stereo. Then he went to lay down because, remember, he's not feeling well. Meanwhile, Alan Bono is still drinking. Around 6 p.m. that night, Alan invited them all up to his apartment, which was just located right above the kennels. And he turned the TV on really loud. And when he couldn't get good reception, because back then, y'all, we had like bunny ears,
Yeah. Tinfoil and bunny ears.
Yeah, the youngest kid had to stand with his one hand out the window to get a good reception for something.
I actually was Dad's TV remote.
I was the TV remote as well. Get up and change that. Yeah. Wasn't that hard? There were only 4 channels. Yeah, exactly. And one of those was public access.
Well, we lived way out in the country, so we only have 3.
There you go. No PBS?
Nope.
Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah, all we could
You missed out on Sesame Street. Oh, wait. Well, when does I know you're too old for Sesame Street? I didn't miss out on Sesame Street.
Yeah.
But Alan turns his TV on. It's really loud. And when he couldn't get good reception, he starts beating his fist into his palm before he starts punching the wall. And Alan's really drunk by now, and Debbie and Arne just want to get these 3 girls out of this environment. So Debbie says, it's time to go, and ushers the 3 of them out of his apartment and down the stairs, and Arne is right on her heels. But Alan follows them, and then Alan grabbed 9-year-old Mary's arm and refused to let go. Arne, who wasn't a fighter, demanded that Alan let Mary go, but he wouldn't do it. Now, if Arne is to be believed, he doesn't remember anything after he and Debbie started walking down the stairs to leave.
Okay.
He claims that his memory is a total blank on that day and that he blacked out. But from what has been documented, things escalated very quickly and it ended very badly. Arnie's 15-year-old sister, Wanda, said she heard Arne growling like an animal. She tried to move him as the other 2 girls ran to the car, but he wouldn't budge. He was like, quote, a stone, end quote. Then Debbie moved to get in between Arne and Alan, and this is when Wanda saw something shiny flash through the air just before it stopped.
Wow.
And then Arne went still, and he walked away into the woods as if he's still in this trance-like state. Alan Bono fell forward to the ground, not moving. Beside his body was a 5-inch tree surgeon's knife. It was a foldable blade. It was something Arne always had with him. In the words of Detective Glenn Cooper, quote, I got a call from dispatch. I was told that there was a serious stabbing. We were calling all hands on deck, end quote. And I believe this stabbing and what is going to end up being a murder was the first murder in this area in like 120 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Debbie told the police who arrived on the scene that Arne and Alan had been drinking. In the apartment, there was an argument, and it developed into a physical fight. It ended out on the front lawn of the kennel, about 13 to 15 feet from the front door. And during this fight, Arne pulled a knife out that he had in his pocket, and he repeatedly stabbed Alan Bono. Alan Bono fell. He's mortally wounded. Debbie was very distraught. She tells the cops that Arne took off to the woods and that she thought he was going to head to the family home on Oak Grove Road because it's not that far away.
Okay.
Arne Johnson stabbed Alan Bono a total of 4 times with this 5-inch, 13-centimeter pocket knife.
Ouch.
Reportedly growling like an animal all the while, and each stab was within the chest and the stomach region, clearly meant to cause harm.
Right.
Then Arne takes off into the night, and Debbie called the police as well as her family. And when her family gets the call, David is petrified. Little 11-year-old David's petrified. He thinks that the demon is back and that it had possessed Arne, and it was going to come after him all over again. Carl, Judy, and Carl Jr. all piled into the family truck, and they took off to the apartment to help Debbie, leaving David and Alan alone at home. Now, when the family gets there, Debbie says, quote, oh, there was a bad fight. Alan got stabbed. He's over there, end quote. And 15-year-old Carl Jr. sees Alan Bono laying on his side. He rolled him over. He sees the 4 stab wounds. And Alan's gasping for air, and according to Carl Jr., he just kept saying to him, quote, Alan, hold on, end quote. Alan Bono was transported to the hospital, but he died from his injuries hours later. By the way, on autopsy, Alan Bono had 3 times the legal limit of alcohol in his bloodstream.
Wow.
On the way to the hospital, Sergeant Gordon Fairchild of the Brookfield Police Department was helping escort the ambulance when he spotted someone walking alongside the road. And I read that and I thought, so there's so few bad things that go on that when an ambulance shows up on the scene and the police show up on the scene, the police officer is actually escorting, sirens going in front of the ambulance.
Yeah.
I mean, you would never see that. You know, it's kind of like every man for himself out there now, right?
Yeah.
But as he's helping to escort this ambulance, he sees someone walking alongside the road. It's Arne. He's dazed and confused. He had blood all over his hands and shirt. He's arrested immediately, and he's charged with assault. though before the night was over, that charge would be raised to murder. And Arne couldn't believe it, any of it. He had never been violent before. He'd never hurt anyone before. He'd never been arrested. And he claimed to have absolutely no memory of anything he had done to Alan. He told them they had the wrong guy. And nevertheless, he was charged and held for murder in the first degree, and his bond was set at $25,000. Okay. Now, the police remember the Warrens coming to them and saying, something bad's going to happen. Lorraine saw it, and there was supposed to be a knife involved. But she didn't mention Arne, and the police believed it would be David because the Warrens showed the chief of police, Chief Anderson, the evidence of David's possession. The police had several different reasons for why they thought this murder had happened, and initially none of them had anything to do with a demon or the devil.
Okay.
Alan grabs Mary's arm. That was one of the motives.
Right.
There also may have been an argument about the payment for the stereo repair. But the third motive was one that we're all familiar with, especially on this podcast, a love triangle. During the 3 months that Debbie and Arne had lived at the Brookfield Kennels, they had become really close with Alan. They'd even talked about opening a pet store together. And Debbie's mother, Judy, had been overheard more than one time saying that there ought to be more men like Alan Bono. And Mary Johnson, Arnie's mother, said she felt as if she knew Alan because Arne talked about him so much. And her son had often told her that Alan was just a wonderful man. The Brookfield police had suspected that there may have been a little bit more between Alan and Debbie than just a friendship or a personal relationship. And this is something that Debbie has always denied, saying, quote, "They say we must have been having a love affair. If that was the case, everybody was in love with Alan. He could make friends with anybody," end quote. And I believe in the end, Debbie will admit that she and Alan had a little bit of a fling, but that it was over before she and Arne moved into the apartment.
Gotcha.
In the 3 weeks after Alan's murder, police conducted 18 in-depth interviews. The 4 people who had witnessed the crime were interviewed, these little girls. They're all interviewed separately. And at the time, every single story lined up. It was all the same. On February 27th, 1981, the Hartford Courant reported the Bridgeport Diocese had assigned a Father, Francis Virgil, to act and investigate in the possibility of diabolical possession in David Glatzel. So all this time, nobody really knows what's going on with little David, unless you were close to the family.
Sure.
But suddenly it's all out in the open. It's in the paper.
Okay.
The diocese admitted to having performed an exorcism, but they said they only did like 1 or 2, and they weren't formal. They were just like, your basic run-of-the-mill exorcism.
I wonder why they didn't want to let people know that they were actively doing this.
I think because, especially at the time, the Catholic Church, I think they recognize that they do exorcisms, but maybe at one point they didn't really exorcise that, or they didn't really say that they were doing exorcisms because, it's kind of like, that's scary territory, right?
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
The communications director for the diocese said that a formal or solemn exorcism was never even requested, even though the Warrens and the Glatzels said, listen, that is not true. So now the church is kind of like, we're going to separate ourselves from this because now there's been a murder.
Yeah.
Ed and Lorraine Warren were also interviewed, and they told the press that they did not believe Arne was possessed any longer, but he could be taken over again at any time. And Lorraine said, quote, "The demon used Arne to achieve its goal. It wanted to really destroy this young man's life," end quote. Now, as far as the formal exorcisms not being requested, Ed Warren said, quote, "The 2 younger priests went directly to the bishop. We have it on tape. We hope the priests will do what's right and come in and testify. If they don't, we will have to subpoena them to testify, and we'll have to use our tapes to prove it," end quote.
Wow.
And Lorraine claimed that a few things had made it possible for this demon to so fully take over Arne. First thing was that he had taken penicillin that day and he wasn't feeling well, which is an antibiotic, and Arne had also had some alcohol that afternoon, which further weakened his demonic defenses. I will tell you, Catherine Kaufman, our resident psychic, will say it's when you're in this weakened state. So alcohol, drugs, any of those things.
Right.
Just don't do them. There's just really no reason to do it.
Yeah.
But Arnie's court-appointed attorney, George Tam, he's not really on board with everything going on with Lorraine and Ed.
Right.
But by early March, Arne had a new attorney, Martin Manila. He was 6 years out of law school and hungry to make a name for himself. And according to Arnie's mother, Mary, Manila offered to represent her son free of charge. And as soon as he was on the case, he announced to the media that if his client was indicted, he was prepared to make a legal argument that the devil had made Arne Johnson murder Alan Bono.
The devil made me do it.
Quote, "The courts have dealt with the existence of God. Now they're going to have to deal with the existence of the devil," end quote.
Wow.
The media had a field day.
Wow, bad.
This is 1981.
Yeah.
So there really aren't like movies about, we're so numb to so much of this stuff now because all these Conjuring movies have been out and all these scary demonic movies have been out. I think The Exorcist was out, but that was like people were fainting in the aisles at the movie theater. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that was basically the only movie that was out there at the time. Yeah.
So the media had a field day with all of it. A man claiming that he'd been possessed by the devil, and that's what made him kill a friend. I mean, it's unheard of. Mm-hmm. And the Warrens were interviewed several times about the case, and they even allowed some of the tapes they took of David's possession to be played on the radio. And a lot of people thought it was all nonsense, calling it an open and shut case. This is just murder, first-degree murder. He stabbed him.
Yeah.
But many people believed it to be real, and some even called into the radio station asking, when are you going to play those recordings again? We want to hear those again.
Right.
Martin Manila said he had credible evidence that Arne Johnson was possessed. He was referring to the over 150 photos that showed little David in various stages of possession. And these photos showed David clutching at his throat while his father and older brother restrained him. And another photo showed Arne Johnson holding a silver crucifix to David's forehead. Tape recordings had also been made, and one recording taken on October 14th at 3:30 a.m. had the sounds of heavy breathing, followed by David making guttural sounds and uttering obscenities. David then made a prediction on the tape in a deep and unnatural voice. Cheyenne, which is Arnie's middle name, dies at work tomorrow. Now, Debbie Glatzel alleged that the following day, Arne fell 20 feet from a 72-foot tree, and he had to secure himself in these knots, and he was always very careful, but somehow Arne fell. The branches broke his fall. He was hurt, but he didn't tell the other people on the job because he was a little bit ashamed, so he was kind of like, I don't want anybody to know I fell out of the tree. But after this accident, Arne suffered a minor knee injury. But not long after, Debbie claimed that her fiancé woke up in the middle of the night screaming. Debbie said Arne yelled out something about hell and then put his fist through a wooden chest of drawers before going back to sleep. And when he woke up the next morning, his hand was sore and bruised, but he had absolutely no recollection of what he had done.
Wow.
So if the defense could prove that David Glatzel was possessed, it would be easier for the jury to believe that Arne Johnson could have also been possessed, considering he was living with the family at the time and even sleeping in the same room some nights as David. And he was taunting these demons. He was challenging them to come into him.
Yeah.
Even if a couple members of the jury truly believed that David may have been possessed, it would be enough to convince others that maybe Arne was possessed too.
Yeah.
October 28th, 1981, Arne's trial begins, and the defense was ready, as was the Glatzel family. Most of the family was ready to testify that what had happened with David led to this, the murder. The Warrens were ready to testify with their knowledge of David's possession and all their evidence, and the defense had built this entire case around this idea that the devil had caused him to do this, had caused Arne to do this.
Right.
The prosecution was aiming for the maximum sentence, and they wanted to put Arne away for the rest of his life.
Oh.
And Arne was confident. The family was confident. And they all knew that if Arne had to be found not guilty, they all needed to prove he really was possessed by a demon or a devil.
Right.
That is, until the judge said no.
What?
Judge Robert Callahan, in front of a packed courthouse, standing room only, listened to the plea of the defense, the plea of not guilty by reason of demonic possession, and he said, "Not today, Satan."
Wow.
He said no.
Wow.
He said that defense was nonsense, that it wasn't real, it wasn't provable science, that it had no bearing in this case or in any case in a United States court, and that no evidence or testimony in regards to said defense would be heard or acknowledged by the court.
Wow.
Their whole strategy was banking on their case of demonic possession, and it had just gone up in smoke right before their eyes.
Yeah.
There were even priests from the church where the original exorcism took place. They were there to witness the proceedings and maybe even aid in the defense. But once that ruling was made, the fathers just got up and walked out quietly.
Wow.
And they never spoke of the case again. But according to Arne's attorney, Martin Manella, every time someone gets on the stand, they place their hand on the Bible and swear to tell the whole truth before God. And yet a defense in regards to the devil and demons was too out there. I mean, acknowledging God is okay, but the other side of the coin, that's too much.
Yeah.
I kind of get the point.
Yeah.
Arne feels abandoned. He wanted the chance to tell the whole truth, but they would never allow the truth. So they need a new strategy. The entirety of their case was down the tubes, especially when there were signed statements that Arne had in fact stabbed Alan Bono to death. So they went with a case of self-defense in a last-ditch effort to save Arne's life, looking for manslaughter instead of murder. But Arne had stabbed Alan 4 times in self-defense.
Yeah.
The trial itself lasted about a month, with Arne getting on the stand and sticking with his story of not being able to remember a thing about the events of that night. The trial came to an end on November 24th, 1981. After deliberating for 15 hours, the jury returned with their verdict, and perhaps not in the way that many believed they would. The verdict was not guilty of murder in the first degree, but guilty of manslaughter in the first degree.
Wow.
When it came to sentencing, Judge Callahan said, quote, "I have no alternative but to give you the maximum sentence allowed, 10 to 20 years in a maximum security prison," end quote. This is a kid who's has never done anything.
Yeah.
But I get it. It's murder. He killed somebody.
Yeah.
When the sentence is read, Debbie jumped up and yelled at the judge, quote, "You're sick. You're insane," end quote. And then she just went running out. She's crying. She just runs out of the courtroom. When Arne was leaving the courthouse, this sounds like a movie, Debbie breaks through the crowd to get to him and gives him a kiss. And he tells Debbie, "I want you to go live your life because I don't know what's going to happen with mine. And this way you still can have a life." And she starts to cry and she says, "You don't love me anymore?" And he said, "I do love you. That's why I'm giving you your freedom." But Debbie told Arne, "I'm never going to leave you." And so the case itself came to an end, and Arne was behind bars. Now, in the movies, the Warrens are portrayed as these heroic people, but many have criticized them, saying that they were con artists who used these incidents for money and notoriety. In 1997, Stephen Novella, an American clinical neurologist and associate professor at Yale University School of Medicine, and late American podcaster Perry DeAngelis, investigated the Warrens for the New England Skeptical Society, or NESS. They agreed that the Warrens were a loving couple and a pleasant couple, but they thought that all their work and claims of supernatural activity were hogwash. I think that's like the official term. The Warrens were steadfast in their beliefs, with Lorraine stating that those who doubted, those who lambasted their work, don't base anything on God. Steve Novella and Perry DeAngelis said, quote, "They have a ton of fish stories about evidence that got away. They're not doing good scientific investigation. They have a predetermined conclusion, which they adhere to, literally and religiously. The Warrens claim to have scientific evidence which does indeed prove the existence of ghosts, which sounds like a testable claim into which we can sink our investigative teeth. What we found was a very nice couple, some genuinely sincere people, but absolutely no compelling evidence," end quote. So what happened after the Warrens deemed David to be possessed? What did David's other siblings feel about what was happening around the house?
Right.
Well, Carl Jr., who was 15 at the time of all of this, didn't believe it for a second that his brother was possessed. He believed that something else was at work. But again, we'll get to that in just a moment. Carl Jr. was 15 when it all starts happening, and he doesn't mince words about his feelings at the time, which have remained the same ever since. Quote, "I didn't know what Ed and Lorraine Warren's agenda was. In the beginning, I just sat back and watched, and things didn't sit right with me. They'd sit down at the kitchen table to discuss David's issues. They were saying, well, he could start cursing at you, spitting at you. He'll grunt and growl like a savage. And my concern was, why are you talking about this subject when the subject is sitting at the table with you? Like, make the kids go outside, go downstairs, go do something."
Yeah,
but they wanted to make sure that the kids heard what they said, and they did. Like, you're leading them on with what to do.
Yep.
Yeah. You don't think David's smart enough to put all that together? That's what he's saying. A couple of days later, David was doing just that. He was growling and snarling and cursing.
Mm-hmm.
According to Carl Jr., for that first week, the Warrens showed up almost every day. And instead of trying to really help David, try to figure out a way to stop what was happening, they were more focused on recording him and getting evidence. You could say that was them building a case for the church. But if it's genuine, if it was real, how long were they supposed to let this kid suffer with this malignant entity inside him? And Carl Jr. says it turned into a show. And Carl Jr. wasn't the only person who didn't believe in this possession. Neither did his father, Carl Sr. He simply believed that David was having a mental break. He didn't back his wife or the other children in this, and he thought they were feeding into it. And Carl Jr. even recalls one night in particular when his dad single-handedly ended one of David's episodes, all with some hands-on parenting. Nothing wrong with a little bit of Christian discipline. Quote, "There was one incident one evening that my mother was screaming at David to stop it and calm down, sit down. And he was calling her everything under the sun. And all of a sudden, my father came out and you hear slap. He goes, 'Now I said to stop.' And sure enough, the devil sat down and was very quiet." "So I'm glad at last he listened to my father," end quote.
Wow.
But it wasn't just the Warrens who wanted the story of David's possession out there. In the beginning, the mother, Judy, she's like on a warpath. She wanted the story about David's possession to be out there for as many people to know as possible. She went on all the talk shows. She did interviews with the Warrens by her side. She was flown out to Hollywood with the Warrens. She stayed in all these fancy hotels with the Warrens. And she had dinner with TV host Dick Clark with the Warrens. And if you don't know who Dick Clark is, you probably don't know who Grizzly Adams is either.
Yeah, rocking Christmas or New Year's Eve.
Yeah. But there are those that say the Warrens were just stringing her along the whole way, telling her that her and her family would be millionaires over all this possession drama, and the money would go towards getting Arne out of jail, which it never did. And then, of course, the Warrens wrote a book about David and Arne's experiences, The Devil in Connecticut. It was written by Gerald Brittle with the assistance of Lorraine. It was published in 1983 and tells the story of the Glatzel incident using all the evidence collected. The Glatzels met with Gerald Brittle when he came to their house and asked them to tell him what had happened. 100 hours of interviews were put on tape to make the book seem more authentic. And according to Carl Jr., in the end, Ed Warren just tells Gerald Brittle, the author, to make the book scary because scary sells.
Yeah.
And you'd think that the Glatzel family would receive a check for book sales, right?
Yeah.
Wrong.
Really?
according to Carl Jr., quote, Ed and Lorraine Warren took over. 6 months later, the Warrens showed up with paperwork, and my mom's like, should we get an attorney?
Yeah.
And Lorraine's like, no, dear. William Morris Agency has a whole floor of lawyers. And according to Carl Jr., my mother and father received $4,500. But Ed and Lorraine received over $81,000. Wow. And they're still making money off of it with the Conjuring films. Now their estate is. Years later, the Glatzels fought against the book. They fought against the hell that the Warrens had put them through. The book was republished in 2006, causing a fresh wave of crap to fall on the family. Carl Sr., who still stood fast that he never once claimed his son was possessed, even to Judy, were long gone. So the kids now, as adults, have to deal with all of this.
Right.
David and Carl Jr. even sued the authors and book publishers for violating their right to privacy. Lorraine defended what she and her husband did to her dying day, claiming they helped the family, while Carl said they had taken advantage of his brother's mental illness and had painted him as the villain because he wouldn't play along. And then there's this. After Carl Sr. and Judy pass away, Carl Jr. and his wife go back into the childhood home to go through their belongings. And while they're sorting through stuff, Carl comes across something suspicious, something that quickly started putting all that they had gone through into perspective.
Really?
His mother had OCD and was known to make notes on everything from calendars to little scraps of paper. I feel you, Judy. I do the same thing. But Carl found a note in Judy's handwriting, which was scribbled, quote, well, the family had their medicine tonight and everything is good, end quote.
Ooh.
It is alleged that Judy Glatzel, without her family's knowledge or consent, had been drugging their food for years.
Really?
Specifically with the drug Sominex. Now, Sominex is an over-the-counter sleep aid medication.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get. And Judy had been giving it to the rest of her family for a very long time, always in their dinner, which she served separately from her own. Her food was always made and stored apart from the rest of the family's meals.
That wasn't suspicious at all.
And if any of them offered her seconds from the family's share, she would always decline. She wanted everybody to be quiet and go to bed. Yeah. She was drugging them.
Wow.
And here's the thing about Sominex. Long-term use has the potential to develop side effects, which include mood swings, weight gain, euphoria, hallucinations, and psychosis.
Wow.
So did Judy cause her youngest son to experience a so-called possession or a psychotic break? The same can be said about Arne, because he lived with them. Right. He ate the same food that they did.
Right.
He was under the effects of the same drugs and easily could have been or had similar problems or side effects on his mental state.
Sure.
Especially the night he stabbed Alan to death.
Right.
The Conjuring films have been a huge success, some of the best horror films in recent history. And no matter what you believe about Ed and Lorraine Warren, Carl Jr. said it best, quote, they were good at what they did, end quote. You could take that any way you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
Judy and Carl Sr. have long since passed, as did Debbie, but she never wavered in her love or support of Arne. She stuck with him till the end. Quote, I've always said it from the beginning that Arnie's innocent. He's been to hell and back, end quote. So what happened to Arne? In 1985, he and Debbie tied the knot while he was behind bars during a small ceremony with the family. And then 1 year later, in 1986, only 5 years after being sentenced 10 to 20 years, Arne Johnson was released in full for good behavior. Wow. He was a free man. He and Debbie stayed together for the rest of her life until she passed away. And from all accounts, they believed that what had happened to him was real. And they remained happily together until the end. They had 2 sons. I believe they even moved to New York. Mm-hmm. But even to this day, Arne has been affected by all those events all those years ago. But he maintains his story and says, I don't remember any of it, but I am a better man for it.
Wow.
Quote, this whole thing changed my life. brought me more to religion. I'm not possessed. I never had an exorcism, but I'm not possessed, and I know how to protect myself. I know what prayers to say, so I'm very much in control. My faith keeps me strong, so everything seems fine. Life is moving forward, and that, as they say, is that, end quote. But let's not forget the victim, Alan Bono, who didn't deserve to die.
Right.
And his name often gets lost in the retelling of this story. So just want to say, rest in peace, Alan. Don't come see me tonight. The Warrens are also gone at this point. Ed Warren passed away on August 23rd, 2006, and Lorraine died on April 18th, 2019. She's actually in some of those Conjuring movies. She has like little cameo appearances.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I do know that there's an actor that you know who is actually in The Devil Made Me Do It, the Conjuring story that's The Devil Made Me Do It. There's a scene where Arne is like on a ward somewhere, and this guy just sits up in his bed and starts talking.
Is this Davis Osborne?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But that is the story of the Arne Johnson, David Glatzel, and the devil. So if you're watching the Conjuring movies this October, now you know even more. And that's all I have to say about that. For nearly 7 years, Jane Doe has lived in the shadows, her past buried deep beneath layers of secrecy and silence. After completing more than was asked of her in her last assignment for the enigmatic Kaiwolf project, Jane Doe vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of dead bodies and unanswered questions. But now, as the specter of her past returns with a vengeance, Jane finds herself thrust back into a world she thought she'd left behind forever. When her former sins come knocking on her door, Jane is faced with an impossible choice: continue to hide in the shadows, or once again take up arms against the forces that threaten to tear apart the fabric of society. With enemies lurking around every corner and allies who may not be what they seem, Jane must rely on her wits, training, and her unyielding determination to survive. And while trust is a luxury she cannot afford, Jane must confront the truth about herself and her past. As the clock ticks, she realizes that the line between family, friend, and foe are razor thin, and in the end, the only person she can rely on is herself. Jane Doe 4 Charlotte is available September 24th, 2024. No name, no regrets, no mercy.
All right, my take on this thing.
Okay.
Well, I think it's difficult for anything that's dealing with the paranormal because you don't have scientific evidence. There isn't hard evidence. Okay, this is exactly what happened. It's all on basically hearsay.
Yeah, and I think that now, I mean, if you watch all the paranormal ghost hunters and stuff like that, everybody has a camera with them in the palm of their hand, which was something that was unheard of, 40 years ago or whatever. So I think, instead of just saying, I saw him levitate, I saw this, I saw that. Well, now someone's going to whip out their phone and be like, here's the video footage of him levitating, which I don't think any of us have seen. Right. So I don't know. Make of it what you will. Again.
Except in The Exorcist.
Except in The Exorcist.
Oh, well. All right. Well, hopefully Arnie's found some peace and he's moved on with his life. And
I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to some people that probably were possessed themselves with a little bless your heart.
Well, bless your heart.
All right. Number one, I'm calling He Was McFlurried Away.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Love this.
A statue of Ronald McDonald was stolen in broad daylight from a sleepy Pennsylvania town's only McDonald's, leaving local police trying to track down the suspects in the devious McNapping.
I just realized if it was a McFlurry, that means that the ice cream machine was working.
There you go. The lost effigy depicts the famed smiling redhead kneeling in his bright yellow uniform, according to police. Quote, "We're not clowning around. This was a full-blown McNapping. Ronald was last seen smiling as usual, unaware of the betrayal. Witnesses say he didn't even put up a fight," unquote, the NPD wrote on Facebook. Quote, "To the suspects, we get it. Times are tough and therapy is expensive. But kidnapping a plastic icon of joy, that's a McFelony," unquote.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, police are urging the public to keep an eye out for the long-lost Ronald, quote, "maybe at a party, passenger seat of a car, or sitting awkwardly in someone's yard." The young suspects were captured on surveillance footage fleeing the scene in a black car without a readable license plate.
Oh, okay.
Now, few McDonald's still feature the fast food giant's old mascots. Many across the country were modernized over the past decade, which included the removal of Ronald McDonald and others like Grimace.
And the Hamburglar.
Yeah, but who shot back up to popularity in 2022 after the release of a milkshake in his honor.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. Nobody wants the Ronald because they're afraid of clowns. I'm just saying.
Yeah. The occasional hangry burglar loves to mess around with the idols. Coincidentally, an identical statue of Ronald is being sold on eBay for $2,500 with a pickup location that's just an hour outside of where it was taken.
You don't say.
Yeah, that was just coincidence, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
All right, number 2, exactly why cursive should be taught in schools.
Which I agree.
Yeah, a Colorado man is wanted for allegedly attempting to hold up a bank in a robbery that quickly went off the rails when the teller couldn't read the note he handed over.
He's a part-time doctor as well.
Oh, my gosh. The accused would-be thief entered a bank in Loveland, Colorado, around 5 p.m. on December 17th and went straight to the teller, who he handed a note, according to the Loveland Police Department. But the teller couldn't discern exactly what was written on the note since it was nearly impossible to read, according to CBS Colorado.
That's too good.
Yep. As the teller was still trying to figure out what the note said, the man grew frustrated and quickly fled the bank, police said. The suspect was wearing a brown hoodie, a green baseball cap, and sunglasses. The LPD are still searching for him, and to top it off, his face wasn't even covered during the incident, so they have a clear picture of his
Bless
face.
his heart. He didn't get his instant gratification, so he just stormed out.
Exactly. All right, number 3, Anna, finally.
Finally.
Honesty will get you everywhere.
Yes, it will.
Yes, including jail.
Oh, okay.
An alleged meth user landed herself behind bars when she called the Indiana police to rat out her drug dealer.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea or not.
Yeah, telling cops the batch was, quote, not what it was supposed to be.
Oh, Lord, have mercy.
Yeah, I know. Sarah Harris, 34, dialed 911 twice in January to complain that she was supplied with a bag of methamphetamine that was bad.
Oh.
An arrest affidavit obtained by the smoking gun said that Harris then allegedly handed the drugs over to the cops at her home in the city of Bedford in hopes that they could test their authenticity.
What's her name again?
Sarah Harris.
Life's a bitch, Sarah. You can't always get what you want.
Exactly. The bad meth left her feeling as though she were having a heart attack.
I think meth will do that to you.
You think? Harris allegedly admitted to snorting a line of the substance and felt, quote, something different when it touched her skin and nostrils. She immediately knew it wasn't the experience she had signed up for. She compared the painful sensation to the, quote, bowl of normal meth, unquote, she smoked with a friend previously, according to the document.
No way.
Yeah, I know. Harris was apparently willing to admit to her illegal activity as long as it meant retribution for her sketchy dealer.
Ooh,
quote,
snitches get stitches,
You got
Sarah.
it. I wanted to turn the person in that provided the bad meth, Harris allegedly declared. For her candid honesty, Harris was slapped with a meth possession charge only, a felony that carries a maximum sentence of about 30 months.
Oh.
Yeah. The arrest does not mark Harris's first run-in with cops. Here we go. Get your laundry list out.
Okay.
She has a prior conviction for theft, meth, possession, criminal mischief, disorderly conduct, resisting, operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated.
That's quite a rap sheet.
Just to name a few. Oh, geez. So there's your idiots for the week.
Too bad you can't rate your drug dealer on Yelp.
Oh my gosh.
Wasn't as advertised. Yeah. 1 star.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, if you have a bless your heart or you know somebody's heart who needs blessing, all you got to do is go to hitchtohomicide.com. When you get there, you can find a pull-down menu, and while you're there, you can also suggest a case or tell us about your brush with true crime. Next week, we're going to do another spooky Halloween story. There we go again with the mouth trumpets.
All right.
That's my amazing husband out there.
That's my beautiful bride in the booth.
Join us next time on Hitch to Homicide.
Bye, y'all.